Who betrayed Anne Frank? Behind a bookcase that doubled as a secret door, 15-year-old Anne Frank and her family lived in constant fear. If discovered in their hideout, an annex in the back of her father's business, they could be sent to their deaths. It was 1944, and throughout Amsterdam, the forces of Nazi Germany were rounding up Jews. For the Franks, any wrong move, a loud noise, a window left open, a flash of light could give them away. On August 4th, the Franks' worst fears were realized. At around 11 a.m., Dutch police, led by a Nazi officer, forced their way into the annex and dragged everyone away at gunpoint. Soon, all 8 people living in the hideout were arrested and sent to concentration camps. Just one of them, Anne's father, Otto, would survive. Today, much is known about the Franks' time in hiding thanks to Anne's diary, first published in 1947. Yet one aspect of her story has remained a mystery: how authorities found out about the hiding place. Otto, who passed away in 1980, long suspected that it was one of his employees, Wilhelm von Maren, had tipped off the police. Yet investigations by Dutch officials turned up nothing. Now a new team of detectives, analysts, and historians is determined to crack the case. Using modern technology, including 3D models of the annex, artificial intelligence, and advanced computer software, they're hoping to figure out who, if anyone, betrayed the Franks' whereabouts. Hitler's rise to power. Anne was 3 years old when Adolf Hitler became Chancellor of Germany in 1933. Before long, thousands of German Jews, including the Franks, fled the country in a desperate attempt to escape the Nazis. In 1934, Anne and her family settled in Amsterdam, where they thought they would be safe. And at first they were. But in 1940, less than a year after Hitler's invasion of Poland sparked World War II, German forces occupied the Netherlands. As Hitler's empire grew, hundreds of thousands of European Jews tried to flee to other countries, fearful that they would be deported to death camps. But many had nowhere to go. Life in hiding. In 1942, Otto decided that his family had no choice but to go into hiding. His business was made up of offices and a warehouse. Behind them was a small building called an annex that could be used, or that could only be reached from the inside. Soon after the Franks moved in, they were joined by Otto's business partner, Hermann von Pels, his wife, and their son Peter. Another German man, Fritz Pfeiffer, arrived a few months later. Several of Otto's employees agreed to help them, risking their lives to provide food and other necessities. Despite the constant danger, Anne tried to remain optimistic. It's difficult in times like these. Ideals, dreams, and cherished hopes rise within us, only to be crushed by grim reality, she wrote in her diary on July 15, 1944, less than 3 weeks before the raid on the annex. It's a wonder I haven't already abandoned all my ideals. They seem so absurd and impractical, yet I cling to them because I still believe, in spite of everything, that people are truly good at heart. After their arrest, Anne and the others in the annex were sent to Auschwitz, in Poland, the most notorious of all the death camps. Anne and her older sister Margot were eventually transferred to Bergen-Belsen, a death camp in Germany, where they are believed to have died of typhus in February of 1945, just weeks before the camp was liberated by British troops. By the time Germany surrendered in May of 1945, the Nazis had killed more than 6 million European Jews and 5 million others. Many of them have been shot or thrown into mass graves or herded into gas chambers, their bodies then burned in the crematoriums. Potential suspects. Over the years, potential suspects have included von Maren, a prominent Dutch Nazi named Tony Alhers, and a woman whose husband worked for Otto, Lena Hartog van Bladaren. Pankoki says his team has started analyzing millions of pages of scanned documents, including the police reports, witness statements, and lists of Nazi informants, and begun to follow up on leads. Previous investigations had to analyze such documents by hand, but new computer software can process the same information in a fraction of the time. The team also plans to construct a 3D version of the annex and use computer models to determine how far sounds could have traveled. They're hoping to determine whether a neighbor or passerby could have heard the Franks and alerted the authorities. The investigators had also set up a tip line so people could submit information. They've already received hundreds of tips, including family members, past suspects, and people who live near the annex. All right, we're going to finish these last 2 paragraphs in a separate recording.